You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by Cboe Live Vol. Cboe Live Vol is the leader in equity and index options trading technology, providing professional and retail traders with the most sophisticated options risk analysis, compliance, and trading tools. Cboe Live Vol offers a broad spectrum of advanced trading technology, including the Live Vol X, next generation execution platform, and Live Vol Pro, the new standard in options trading front ends. Visit livevol.com for a 15-day free trial today. And by Russell Investments, the home of Russell Indexes, which calculates approximately 700,000 benchmarks daily, covering 98% of the investable market globally, including more than 80 countries and more than 10,000 securities. Approximately $4.1 trillion in assets are benchmarked to Russell Indexes. For more information on Russell Indexes and RVX, please visit russell.com/indexes. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time once again for Volatility Views. If you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, it isn't time for that show. It's it's Tuesday. You're right. We're a little bit off schedule, but there's a lot going on today. Tuesday, November 8th here when we're streaming this live and indeed recording for this for you guys out here. Of course, a very special election day themed episode here, or quick hits, I should say, really, of Volatility Views. A lot of you guys have been writing into us for the better part of the last few months. What does an election mean for volatility? What does the election mean for the VIX, et cetera, et cetera? We've touched on it many times on Volatility Views, but we thought now that the day is here and it's actually happening before our eyes, then it might be useful to check in on exactly how this is playing out in the markets themselves. My name is, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from this here Options Insider Radio Network. You guys know where to hit us by now, theoptionsinsider.com. Grab our app via the various app stores, or indeed to subscribe to us in your favorite podcast provider, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Google Play, all that fun stuff. And while you're there, you can always just subscribe to Vol Views if you just want to mainline the volatility, or you can grab our network feed. That'll give you everything. So that's a lot of content, be forewarned. But if you want to go down the options rabbit hole, we'll take you there. 15 programs worth of goodness at your fingertips, or in this case, at your earlobe tips. And of course, joining me on the old program today, we couldn't do a Vol Views without the man from the corner office, who I've been informed received a promotion many, many months ago. We just neglected to mention it on the show. I've been referring to him as the senior instructor over there at the Options Institute. He actually is the head of education over there at the CBOE, Mr. Russell Rhodes, a.k.a. Mr. Corner Office. Mr. Rhodes, welcome back to this, and thanks for joining us on this very special Election Day quick hits of Volatility Views.
Oh, no, it's, this was my idea. You're not giving credit where credit's due.
That's true. You did kind of suggest that.
And I have been made available to the media by CBOE until midnight tonight. So this is just the very beginning of my second day. And I've got some breaking news. Are you ready?
I am ready. What is it?
Are you ready?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm here.
With 0% of precincts reporting, it is a dead heat.
All right.
Yeah. Got to give that to Ivan the K on Twitter, but that one gave me a little bit of a chuckle.
That other voice is, of course, the Greasy Meatball, who's always available to us 24/7. Mr. Greasy Meatball, welcome to this special Quick Hits Election Day Volatility View, sir.
Hey, good to be here. Excited for this election to elect the least popular leader in history.
Yeah, it is a bit of a contentious one, shall we say. I kind of wonder if the turnout will be anemic because everyone's kind of just so disgusted, or if it'll be the other way. Everyone's so animated against the other guy that it'll be record turnout. I don't know. Again, we are streaming this and recording this, listeners, right around 4 o'clock Central Time. So the early results are kind of just going to start filtering in pretty soon. So we don't really know anything for sure, except for the fact that I believe Trump won the early balloting in those early towns in New Hampshire, and then Hillary swept Guam, which insiders are telling me the straw poll in Guam is a very prescient indicator for how the nation will vote. So depending on which way you lean, you either got Trump in New Hampshire or you got Hillary winning Guam. Either way, maybe you can take those early signs for what they're worth. But Russell, you mentioned that the SIBO has been generous enough to make you available until I believe midnight. So you're going to be looking at vol all day. It's been an interesting day as we are recording this. Most of the major indices finished up on the day, about 0.5% or so. The tech-heavy NASDAQ finishing up about 0.75%, maybe a little bit larger move than a lot of people thought, given the fact that most people expect on these days for kind of most big traders kind of keep their powder dry, see how the polls are shaping up. That is a big event after all. And the one thing that didn't kind of move, at least over the day, was the VIX cash kind of ending unched on the day, right around 1875 level. That said, you've been watching this stuff all day long. Volume certainly very strong out there in the VIX options. About a million contracts out there. So a lot of cool stuff. I know, Mark, you kind of pressed for time as well. Maybe before Russell pontificates at length, we'll let you chime in. I know you've been watching it over there at Carmen Line. Maybe slinging a few 1x2 put spreads. What's been catching your eye out there in VIX activity today?
Those 1x2 put spreads probably got quoted 9,000 times today.
See, we're inspiring people with this program.
There is a huge expected move. The VIX cash settled, around 18, and the future around 16. So the future is already expecting the cash to drop at least 2 points. And if I was going to price things out, I think that I don't know that I would sell a VIX straddle expiring next week at any level under $6, because I think you're looking at vol going to maybe near 13 tomorrow, and obviously if the market doesn't get what it wants, so if really I think what the market is looking for is a Hillary win and split government. They don't want a Trump win. They don't want a Hillary landslide. They want the more of the same. If we don't get that, I think depending on how things work out, we could see the VIX get back above 20. We could see it make a Brexit type move, or if it gets exactly what it wants, I think sub 14. There was a bid on the 12.5 puts all day, so there is some real belief that volatility is going to collapse. It's just kind of shocking where the market thinks it might move to.
Yeah, it is kind of a bit of a reverse narrative. Traditionally we have seen markets tend to rally on Republican candidates and tend to stumble a bit on Democratic for a lot of legacy concerns about regulation and things like that. Of course, earlier this week when the FBI seems like they lifted the veil of their investigation around Hillary, kind of cleared her for the second time. The markets reacted pretty strongly, indicating that perhaps in the near term they're favoring a bit of a Hillary run here. And of course, every time we saw Trump closing in the polls or some poll that suggested that, the market would flag a little bit, vol would pop. So maybe indicating a bit of an inverse to what the traditional common sense wisdom would expect going into this. But of course, it has been an interesting day. You mentioned the 1x2 put spreads. I was joking about that, but we kicked that off here on this show. Maybe one of our listeners did writing in for that. But Russell, as I was alluding to earlier, it's been just a rockin' and rollin' day out there. The ADV out there is about 540 or so thousand contracts out there in VIX land, doing 2x that, almost about a little over 1 million contracts, almost 1,080,000, which would be the 2x. So right around that 2x level, pretty active, actually pretty evenly split too. About 1.3 to 1 calls over puts. So that would also, the fact that puts are even in that conversation would tend to go back to reinforce what Mark was saying, that puts were indeed perhaps the order of the day out there. But there's a lot to talk about here. First off, what's your take on what we've been seeing out here in today's activity? That would be for you, Russell, and your mute button.
I can't hear anything that you're saying.
Oh, okay. Well, then, listen.
There's a bunch of background noise, and I can't hear anything you're saying.
Let me try that again. Here, can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah.
Mr. Rhodes. Okay, that was from Mark. He was.
I tried my hardest, but
Yeah, I hear you. Now, I was just asking you what you've seen in today's activity. A lot of paper going up. Obviously, what's been catching your eye?
Well, one of the things that was kind of, it seems like everybody avoided the November 9th options, which I'm happy to see because they actually go off the board. You can't trade them anymore. They're going to settle tomorrow in the open. If we get some sort of dramatic, outcome this evening, it'll be interesting to see how they settle the November 9th contracts that are still open. It's like Mark said, there was a lot of quoting. I mean, we did decent volume in VIX, and you would in the November contracts, and you'd expect that. But I was down there for most of the morning, and there was a lot more quoting and finding out where things were than relative to the volume that we ended up getting. I don't know if I articulated that as well as I could have. You would have thought as much vocalization that was going on in the pit that we had done 2 million contracts. How's that? I don't know if it was a lot of curiosity or people were hoping that to find a cheap way to play the election, any kind of spike in the election, and they just weren't able to find it. I'm kind of scratching my head over that one. As far as what you said about I did want to touch on what you said about the turnout. I know people all over the country, and the lines have been ridiculous. In fact, I still have not gotten a chance to vote, and I always vote at 6 a.m. and catch a 6:30 train, and I wasn't going to be able to get that done today. So I've actually got to go this afternoon. If you want to put a positive spin on this election, it might have gotten more people involved in the process than have been involved in the process ever.
Yeah, that was kind of. It seemed like there's going to be two sides to the coin here. Either no one was going to turn out because everyone was so disgusted, or maybe, as it seems like anecdotally you're seeing, and I haven't been out there myself, I was going to vote right after this show, so maybe I'll encounter that myself in a little bit. But maybe it's the other side of the coin that people are just so outraged, infuriated, call it what you will, that tends to motivate people to go to the polls more so than, hey, I like the guy we got. So we'll see how that is playing out. Of course, there were a lot of concerns how this election would play out post-election as well. A few people pontificating last week on our network that they were kind of taking Trump at his word that he was going to maybe challenge the results, that we weren't going to know who our president is coming out of today, going into tomorrow morning. Maybe some shades back of 2000 where we had that lingering debate about who the president was, and the market reacted like a roller coaster, rallying one day, falling off the next, vice versa, for several weeks until we finally had a concession speech and an actual president. Do you think, A, maybe we'll see some of that, and B, if we did, hypothetically, what do you think would happen to the VIX? Mark was just saying he saw a lot of put action out there, a lot of put quoting, a lot of people obviously betting that we're going to see an aggressive fade for vol post-election. But what if, say, tomorrow morning we wake up and we still don't know who the president is? Where do you think we're heading from a VIX perspective?
Well, I'm gonna deviate from VIX and talk about the exchange traded products for a second, because when I think there's a smarter way to do things, and it's not the CBOE way, which is the VIX futures or the VIX options, I'm happy to highlight it. And one of the smarter traders I know who only trades, I started to say she, I didn't mean to say that. They trade VXX, SVXY, and UVXY, and basically will sometimes buy SVXY or go short VXX or UVXY. They told me with an hour to go in the trading day that they were actually going long UVXY. And the logic was pretty good. We got VIX going out at 1874. We've got the November and December contracts going out, much lower. The November at what do I got? 1586 here, and I see 1639 is what I've got on my live vol. So even if we get a little bit of a volatility crush tomorrow, the ETPs may not get hit as much because we're already in backwardation. It's rare that we're in backwardation. And we're coming up on, or you might foresee something that could cause a spike in volatility. And there are a couple of scenarios this evening that could cause a spike in volatility. A Trump victory would most likely do that. A hung jury would also most likely do that. And then the third outcome is Hillary winning this thing. Well, I think a lot of people are already expecting that. And the trader that did this told me their intent is to get out either way tomorrow morning, either taking somewhat of a loss if we get a volatility crush, but really believing that the upside outweighs the downside in this situation, because the expectation is for a Hillary victory.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting expectation. You're right. And obviously all that put quoting that we saw out there today would probably indicate that people leaning towards that way with Hillary. Of course, once you win the Guam, easy for me to say. Once you win the Guam straw poll, it's all pretty much downhill from there when it comes to electoral votes. So yeah, interesting stuff. A lot of volume lighting it up today, and a lot of interest, obviously, in all things election related right now here. I know, Mr. Rhodes, you're pretty busy over there with your 24 hours of all things volatility at CBOE. But before we hop off, Ken, we just want to do a really quick kind of check-in on all things volatility, because I know this is top of mind for a lot of people right now. Really quickly, anything else you want to share with our listeners here before we hop off this abbreviated election edition of Volatility Views?
The only thing that I really found interesting from where we're at is VVIX. Regardless of what has happened with the rest of the volatility indexes, that thing has maintained a level well above 100. The equity market might be acting like this thing is a done deal, and VIX has come in a little bit, but we're going to start calling VVIX the professionals fear index. How's that? I just came up with that sitting here in my home office. That maintaining almost 110 level leads me to believe that we're not completely out of the woods, or at least everybody doesn't think we're out of the woods yet.
Speaking of out of the woods, we are joined one last time by the greasy meatball from somewhere very dense with people. Mr. Mark, we were just talking about this with Russell about if, let's say, in this hypothetical scenario, obviously the activity you were talking about, people are quoting downside. Obviously, they're favoring a Hillary win. But let's say Trump is a man of his word and he challenges the election results tomorrow, or perhaps there is some sort of disputed result going into tomorrow. What do you think happens to all things volatility and VIX tomorrow?
I think we go right back to 22 or 23, and with maybe some upside and then kind of slowly building up every day. So I think you get a 5-6 point pop, and then maybe a point to 2 points every day until there's some resolution, similar to the pattern that we saw going into Friday as we were waiting to figure out whether the FBI was going to investigate, was going to find Hillary guilty or worthy of a charge. So I think very similar scenario.
So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff playing out. We wanted to make sure we gave you guys a little bit of a taste of all things volatility on today's election day. But don't worry, we'll be back at our usual time on Friday to talk all things volatility views. Hopefully by then we'll know who won this thing. But if not, hey, that'll be even better for us from a volatility perspective. A lot to chew on. On behalf of Russell and the Greasy Meatball, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you guys for joining us here, and we'll see you on a regular time on Friday for more Volatility Views.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.